Chair, this is for a number of factors, but it does actually go back to the important paragraph in 4.5 as well, where we were referencing the other options that are being discussed for this corridor, and we do say at the end of paragraph 4.5 that the most viable form and type of public transport interventions will become clearer once we've concluded a joint study between ourselves and the combined authority into rapid mass transit. But we added recommendation 4 to your papers following the discussion at the Joint Assembly, where the Joint Assembly were really keen to see that the consultation did move forward at pace, and actually playing to Mark's point and Phil's point that there's concerns that access to the biomedical campus is already in desperate need, and therefore the Assembly paper that was proposing that we came back in February with a further report, they asked us to recommend to you that actually we started consultation. So in bringing that forward at pace, we think on reflection it would be better to just be more explicit about how we need to keep our options open about the mode which is adopted for that corridor, and therefore ensure that the consultation does go ahead under the time frame that the Assembly requested, but done so in a way where we're protecting that corridor as a public transport corridor, but for the mode to be determined at a later date. So therefore we are suggesting, and what's on the bit of paper that's been on the ground, that there is a new little 4 in your recommendations, which is to agree public consultation on the 3 strategies, subject to strategy 1 being considered as an off-road public transport corridor, with the most appropriate mode being the subject of further consideration and consultation at a later stage of scheme development following the outcome of this consultation. We're also, because we are very much working alongside the combined authority in this endeavour, suggesting that you have a new little 5, which reinforces that the consultation aims to begin in February 2018, but now adds in following discussion with the Mayor and the combined authority on the content of that consultation. If you agree to those 2 recommendations, that would make your existing little 5, which remains, but becomes a new little 6.
Yeah, do you want to talk about this piece of paper? Are you comfortable with it? What's the basis?
I'm very comfortable with what is being suggested here as a way forward.
Okay. We'll have an official page.
Yeah.
So, Phil, do you want to comment on this piece of paper?
Just on, I think 4's okay. 5, just the word, the consultation to aim to begin in February 2018 following discussion. It doesn't mention agreements. Are we assuming that we're just going to discuss it, or actually will there be something, is it going to be held up if we don't have an agreement, is my question on that.
I think the aspiration would be that we are working together, and therefore in discussing with them we'll be able to find a way forward that meets all of our objectives.
Right. I just wouldn't want it to be delayed much more.
And we have got this point that the chances of us launching it during the perla period are 0. So, we get on with it rather than not.
So question and a point, when is the access study reporting?
By the end of this calendar year.
So by the end of the year. So we'll have an understanding as to what that rapid mass transport study's recommendations or findings
Yes.
are.
It's not coming to your board until February 2018.
But we will know in December. And just to reinforce Phil's point around 5, aim to begin to me is not wording that I would want to see on any document of an agreement form, because that means nothing to begin. I'd rather see begin or something more solid than aim to begin.
So I take responsibility for that, and it was just that we should aim to begin, and if we...
What about if we miss, Chair?
Well, that's the point. We can't sort of sack everybody and fine them and castigate them. We don't actually have a sanction. It doesn't work like that. We can't fine Rachel and Chris if we don't. So it's
I'm sure if they've given a hard target, I'm sure that they'll meet it. But if they're asked to aim to February, so I'll take the point, Chairman. Your call.
If there's any comment on this, Tony Orgy is. Tony will come to you. Yeah, okay. I have seen your hand go up.
Well, I think we're right to keep options open and be clear about that in the consultation. But at the same time, when we come to make a decision, I would expect that it will be clear after the consultation what our proposal is, both on route and or mode, and clearly the specific issue it is more germane to strategy 1 than the others, albeit that there's an overlap. At the end of it, I will be working on the most deliverable, the most sustainable and the best option to get mode shift, which needs to involve high quality public transport to persuade people out of their cars, but it also has to be deliverable. And we have to look in each of the options after the consultation what we can actually achieve, and that will guide me later on. But it's right that we keep the option open in terms of mode, particularly given the nature of the route that it was a former rail line. I would hope that we can start the consultation in February because, and having had some discussion with the Mayor on this, he recognises the need to address the transport issues in this area and also the fact that we don't want to lose momentum.
Yeah. Thank you. Tony.
Yeah, I would agree very much with the points about not losing momentum, but if I would just make a comment on what was actually said at the RNF, I alluded to it obliquely, I think, earlier, but basically, there was comment that the alternatives were bus-based, and certainly the question did arise in the meetings in relation to strategy 1. What would be the cost of if a bus scheme was in, if strategy 1 went ahead and it was a bus-based system, what would be the cost of later transferring that or changing it to a light rail-based system? So that, in a sense, issue did come up at the end about what mode of transport on that route.
Great, thank you. And actually, it's quite interesting because we've got old-fashioned bus, and I think when we think of light rail, we probably think of Dockyns Light Railway or something like that. But the smart work stream of James Potts has been trialling these driverless pods between Choppington and Biomedical Campus. So there could be some completely new modern system as well, which is even better, and we should stay open to that.
And just on a technical point, if you change 5 to 6, you'll need to change 6, 7 and 8 to 7, 8.
The value added is one big German. So I'm going to pull us together, and I'm going to ask us for votes on the recommendations, and for the marking according to normal practice, I'd ask you how you would vote if you had a vote. I'm going to just take them one by one. So, number 1, we note the revised options and strategies resulting from work with the LLF. Happy with that one, everybody?
Yeah.
We note the increased cost of the strategies, more than 39 million previously estimated, results of additional options. Happy with that? We approve the withdrawal of the existing park and ride proposals at Baker Village and Wild Country Organics, pending new larger sites being identified. Happy with that? And then, I'm not going to read out, but we go on to these two that are written on the piece of paper. Are we happy with the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we happy with the second one? Yeah. And then we go back, delegate authority to the Transport Director to approve public consultation materials in conjunction with the Chair and the Transport Portfolio Holder. Are we happy with that? Approve environmental surveys to be carried out starting in January 2018 to meet seasonal index of species. We happy with that?
Yep.
Authorise officers to progress the design and planning of lower cost works in the public highway not requiring consent for open such consultation. We happy with that?
Yeah.
And I can propose the next one becomes ask the LLF to endorse the new name South East Transport Study. We happy with that? Great. Thank you very much indeed. That was a good discussion. Good resolutions.
Can I just add something when it comes to the consultation? Yeah, when actually it mentioned about the Chamber of Commerce in Haverhill and actually the Chamber of Commerce in Suffolk. And can I please ensure that when it does go to public consultation that we do engage with the MP for Haverhill and the Chamber of Commerce for Haverhill and Suffolk, because they have shown a great deal of interest on this corridor and therefore would need to be engaged. So apologies for not bringing that to your attention earlier.
Great, thank you. Okay. So if we now move to agenda item 7, the Western Auditor, what I need to ask to hear from the Chair, Helen Bradbury. I saw Helen, I think, Right, yeah, thank you. Then public questions, we'll take them in this order. Janet Lockwood, Jane Ward, and then Sunanda Biller. Is somebody asking Sunanda Biller's question? Or is Sunanda Biller here? Somebody might not be. Right, if somebody turns up to ask Sunanda Biller's question, we will answer it, otherwise we'll give a written answer. Then we'll ask the officer for presentation. Tim, are you doing that? Or is it Chris again? And then we'll have our clarification and debate. So if we start with Heather, please, thank you.
Where do you want me, Francis?
There's a table for us to get that down.
Okay, so I'm speaking on behalf of the Western Orbital Local Liaison Forum, and I think it might be the last time, but we'll see, who met on Monday the 31st of October. There were 17 voting members in attendance. So 3 things I want to bring to your attention this afternoon. The first is a resolution we passed on process. The second concerns about both proposed sites for new park and ride provision at Junction 11. Some of which were raised by the LNF at previous meetings, but which remain unanswered, and a resolution on connectivity with the A428 scheme and the Western Orbital. And it is relevant. Number 1 on process, resolution passed unanimously. I'm trouble focusing actually. The LNF requests more time between the publication of relevant end-of-stage reports and the timing of the subsequent Joint Assembly meeting, so that it can better feed its recommendations, concerns and suggestions into the decision-making process. The Joint Assembly ought to be concerned about what, on average, 25 to 35 elected representatives from the areas immediately affected by the given proposal think of it, not least because they bring local knowledge into the equation. The current timing structure makes it very difficult for the Joint Assembly to take into account the LLF's contributions, and consequently we believe our views, recommendations and suggestions are not given adequate consideration. We think it correct that, as the statutory consultative body, to feed into the Joint Assembly, the advisory body to the Executive Board, so we're not suggesting that link be lost. But we need another week to consider new reports and proposals in order to best organise ourselves to provide well-considered feedback. And I just want to talk about September, when the situation we feel was at its most absurd. We had 12 days between publication of 53 documents, some of them very large, in the Joint Assembly meeting, and they concerned both the A428 scheme and the Western Orbital one. We had to read the documents, and approximately 40 parish councillors, residents association representatives, district, city and county councillors had to consult colleagues, because they can't make their decisions in isolation, decide a position on important new information and submit agenda items, resolutions and position statements to the chair. We had to arrange the 2 meetings, hold the meeting and then write up the outcomes, circulate the resolutions and present to the Joint Assembly. It's not our day job, and when I did so, I was reprimanded by the chair for not having circulated the information sooner. So our ask is that you would please recommend that 1 extra week is given between the publication of the relevant end-of-stage report and the timing of subsequent Joint Assembly meeting, in order that we can operate within a reasonable timescale. My second point of 3 regards the park and ride at Junction 11. So we had a lengthy debate on this issue and concluded that we need more information and more options put forward in order to provide a considered response. Particularly, we want to know why other locations around Junction 11 have been rejected so early in the process. So, while acknowledging the importance of adequate park and ride provision near Junction 11, the M11, the Western Orbital LLF has serious reservations about both park and ride options presented in the end-of-stage report. That is, the expansion of the Trumpington Park and Ride and the development of a new park and ride site on the northwest side of the A10 Cambridge Road, Hawkston. The problem is that we've not yet received answers to the questions we asked at the last LLF meeting in September, and which were presented to the Joint Assembly on the 13th of September, and we now have more, which is of real concern. However, since the Joint Assembly meeting, Councillor Bates has initiated a meeting with officers in early December when our concerns will be discussed. But of course that's after what you decide today. So thank you, Councillor Bates. But given the gravity of our concerns, we think it's too soon to progress with just these two options on the table. Let me just very briefly summarise our concerns because they're numerous and you've had supplementary material on that. So regarding the expansion of the current Trumpington Park and Ride, we are concerned about the visual impact on the local community, particularly if the park and ride is decked. The primary school is right next door, so we're worried about pollution. The impact on the local network, if it is significantly expanded, already congested, and what will happen during construction, and value for money per new parking space, which is poor. And regarding the proposal for a new park and ride at Hawkston, we have concerns about the impact of this on Hawkston and Harston villages, the effect on traffic through these villages, which is already very seriously congested, access to the new park and ride site, and the report does not deal with this. We have concerns about further erosion of the green belt buffer between Cambridge and our South Cambridgeshire villages. These points were shared by the Western Orbital LLF as a whole in its meeting on the 17th of June. When I want to remind you, it carried the following resolution, 30 in favour, 2 abstentions, that the new park and ride should be sited before congestion begins, and as a general principle, new transport infrastructure should not be allowed to urbanise villages surrounding the city or damage the city's green belt. So our asks on this point, we have 5 of them. Following the meeting with Councillor Bates, we'd like a written response to the questions the Western Orbital LLF asked of the GCP in its last meeting on the 11th of September. A written response, please, to our additional concerns, and I've circulated that information, voiced at our meeting on the 31st of October about each of the proposed sites. Thirdly, that further possible sites be brought forward, together with an explanation as to why other sites around Junction 11 have been rejected or not taken forward. Fourthly, given the evidence base on the number of parking spaces projected to be needed around the M11 in 2031, we're concerned that this does not factor into the modelling the impact of the new Cambridge South station, rail station, or the potential effect of increased parking provision further south along the A10, for example at Foxton Station. So the LLF requests officers provide data and modelling on these 2 points, please. And fifthly, where commuters are travelling to, not just where they're coming from, needs to be considered in order that informed community feedback can be given on the required size and location of the park and ride provision at Junction 11. Finally, I want to talk about the connectivity between the A428 busway and the Western Orbital. This resolution is in response to the statement on page 9 of the report. So it says, the review of options indicates that while there is potential to provide priority measures at Junction 13, the most suitable is reliant on the alignment of the Camborne to Cambridge Better Busways Journeys route. The implication here is that the alignment of the Camborne to Cambridge busway will be decided first, and the LLF doesn't consider this sequencing sensible. So the resolution which was carried unanimously was that the Western Orbital LLF believes that connectivity of a Western Orbital service to the Camborne to Cambridge bus services is of key importance. End-to-end journey times and journey quality from West Cambridge settlements to key employment sites such as the Cambridge Biomedical Campus are a critical factor in judging the benefit of these schemes to allow proper evaluation of benefit-cost ratio. Therefore, the LLF requests that robust end-to-end journey metrics are included in all documentation, that is reports, consultation leaflets, etc., on this and related schemes moving forward. It seems that it would be of particular interest to the biomedical campus, for example. Surely those with particular interest in the biomedical campus, for example, would be less concerned with how quickly the buses on each of the proposed Camborne to Cambridge routes get to Grange Road, a random endpoint, but how quickly and efficiently they connect to a real destination, that is, for example, the biomedical campus. Alignment, we feel, therefore, is less important than connectivity to real destinations. And it is crucial to informed debate that we have this information, particularly since the public are currently being consulted on the A428 scheme. And it is far from clear that an off-road option would be quicker to the biomedical campus than a non-road alternative. So our ask. We had asked the Joint Assembly to recommend to you that end-to-end journey metrics are included in all documentation, so reports, consultation, literature, etc., on this and related schemes moving forward, but most particularly in the forthcoming consultation literature. This has not happened. So please would you recommend that information on connectivity and journey times to real destinations, for example the Biomed campus, the Science Park and the City Centre, by both Silver Street and Northampton Street is published as soon as possible in order that respondents to the A428 consultation can make an informed choice. Thank you.
Shall I ask? You just state that, whether anyone has any questions for you. We'll do it in, yeah. Thank you. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to Helen's presentation, we are going to deal with all the questions that have been raised in the meeting that we've got at council dates in early December, beginning of December. So I don't intend to deal with those as part of the presentation, but they will be dealt with as part of that discussion.
Great.
And then written back.
Great, thank you. And you've got that meeting's all set up?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Chris.
Okay. Would you like me to present the report?
No, I'm terribly sorry.
No,
I'm
you've
going
got
to take
the,
the public questions first.
okay.
I'm ahead of myself. I'm very sorry. Janet Lockwood. Janet, these are transport related. Sorry, I could say to Janet, Jane, Samantha, they're transport related questions, so they will be answered in the first instance as well. Transport portfolio holder, which is here.
Right, very good, thank you. I would just remark, following Helen's presentation, that of course her meeting with you is after you've made your decision today, so which is a bit sad. I would have thought. What I wanted to say was I agree with the need to persuade as many people as possible to use public transport rather than private car to Cambridge destinations. And please would the board consider changing its basic plan from bus to the more sustainable train wherever possible. That is away from park and ride sites near the city to rail stations further out. It's clear from the Assembly vote that opinion is completely divided over recommendation 1 that you have. And before preparing a full outline business case for 2,000 new park and ride spaces near Junction 11, for which there's no site without significant harm, both sites were called harm, please would the board investigate other options, particularly rail, which I think has been a late starter in these studies. Thank you.
Do you want to answer the question one by one, or
Well,
take the yeah?
I'm also going to ask Chris to come back up. I understand the discussion about what I call rail and park and ride, because I'm sure you're aware we've already got an extensive park and ride system around Cambridge, which is well established and well respected as well, with buses coming in and out from Milton Road, etc., etc. And I think there's also, when you look at the growth agenda, the number of houses that we are delivering, it's quite important, I think, for us to actually come back to, I think, what Councillor Herbert started with, is actually how do you stop people coming in their cars to get into the centre. So the provision of park and ride new sites, I think, is quite crucial in the objectives of the Greater Cambridgeshire Partnership. Okay, the issue of where, I think, is one of the issues you're raising about, which is Trumpington, and there were suggestions made about underground, overground, and also extending what is currently there. I'd have to declare an interest as the site is actually owned by Cambridgeshire County Council, which I'm a member of, so I think it would be sensible for me to declare that interest, because the site is owned by the County Council, therefore it would be appropriate for me to declare that interest. I think I'll hand over for the moment some more detail with Chris on the answers for you.
I mean, the point is well made about looking at other modes, and I think the answer is yes, we are looking at other modes. The last item that we've just taken demonstrates that we are not wedded to bus. In fact, not here yet, but the proposal is that in February the board will receive a report on Foxton, and what the art of the possible is with Foxton. We've also got the option appraisal study running at the moment, looking at the various different modes that could be used, light rail, bus, rapid transit, that sort of thing, and that's coming at the end of December. The key here is that we have to provide for everybody. Not everybody wants to use rail, because rail gets you to a certain point, bus actually gets you nearer, so people do use the buses. I mean, we have 3 million people a year using the park and rides within Cambridge, so we are looking at the options, but I think we've also got to recognise, because certainly of the close proximity of the CBC site, that there is a demand there. What we are certainly not looking to do is to generate more traffic. I mean, interestingly, I think everybody would recognise that lives on the A10, the other side of the M11, that traffic has increased, and it has. The A10 and Histon Road actually have generated the biggest increases in traffic. Councillor Vick mentioned this 10% increase. Those increases have materialised down those routes. So we have to do something to try and address the issues that are occurring there. You will not address all those issues just by one mode alone, so it has got to be a package, and we are looking at that package.
And Foxton specifically is a great disappointment to all of us. It was a scheme we wanted to do right from the very beginning. We thought we should railway pay for it, and they are not, so it's coming back to us in
Network Road.
Network Road.
Back in the day.
Right, thank you, Janet. Jane Ward, who is Chair of Foxton Parish Council. Chair. Hello.
Hello. Mine's only a short question. I'm really concerned that there has been insufficient modelling of the traffic flow along the A10 from Foxton through Harston to junction 11 of the M11. In particular, I'm asking whether a survey has been done of the peak time A10 traffic through Harston to junction 11 roundabout. Has modelling been done to show the effects on the A10 when the new Hawkston Meadows exit opens? At the moment, those traffic lights really don't let much traffic come through. I'm really concerned that a lot of traffic will be coming through. Have the possible impacts on this traffic by a new peak park and ride been assessed? I believe all these will have a severely detrimental impact on the flow of traffic along the A10 through Harston. Plus, there is a great chance that commuters living in Barrington and Haslingfield may also decide to make use of this park and ride rather than the Madingley park and ride, attracting even more traffic along the A10. So I urge you not to rush into making a hasty decision and consider these points.
Great, thank you much indeed.
I'm very aware, having walked that section with the previous county councillor a few years ago, so I'm also conscious of what I call aspirations in the past about the bypass. I'm aware of all those issues. In respect of modelling, I would defer to Chris to give you an answer, but I know about the traffic lights that you referred to at the new development there, and I did have some input in the past about adjusting those traffic lights. If they're not adjusted properly, then please bring that to the attention of the traffic engineers.
They are fine at the moment, but once you start getting the traffic coming from the residents, it's going to have a knock-on effect all the way to Foxton, which it does anyway, without that.
I'll refer to Chris about some of the other issues. Thank you.
So the simple answer to the modelling, yes, it has been undertaken. Yes, the modelling does include for the new developments. We also, as I mentioned earlier, actually include for everything we think may potentially be developed there, whether it's in the local plan or not. That's not the standard, but that's our sensitivity testing. So there is only a marginal increase in terms of attracting from other areas to the park and ride. The intent is we have park and rides on all the major routes in, so there is very little additional attraction. So we are looking to ensure that we model everything there.
what we want from that Haslingfield end is that they all take our new greenway instead of getting in that car in the first place.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have we got Sanander Bill here? So we'll give Sanander a written answer. Chris, do you want to make your presentation?
Well, Chair, and briefly, Western Orbital Route includes for what was initially at one point going to be a new connection from Junction 13 through to Junction 11. So it also includes Junction 11, 12 and 13. The proposal now is working closely with the Highways England is to look at smart motorway, which basically means hard shoulder running, so it increases the capacity to 3 lanes, including looking at the junctions. So that scheme now is very much in development with Highways England. In terms of the remaining bits of the scheme, Junction 11 is the Trumpington Junction and the Hawkston site. Junction 12 is a proposal that we had about a Barton Park and Cycle, and Junction 13, of course, is the Manningley Road junction. Our proposal is, in terms of Junction 11, that we carry on working through to develop a proposal around park and ride. In the report, I don't intend to go through it, but we've identified a significant potential increase in scenario 3 of upwards of 2,000 additional vehicles that will require to park there, primarily as a result of the development at CBC. And in making those assumptions, we're making the assumption that only 1 in 3 parking spaces will be provided at the CBC for all the new development that is going on. So we are looking at the alternative site. We're also making a recommendation as well that there is a consultative group set up. The current LLF is the LLF that also covers the 428, which there is extensive work, as Helen has said, 50-odd documents that came through just before the consultation went out. So there is a lot of work on that. But we will leave Junction 13, we're proposing, with that LLF in terms of connectivity. Junction 12, we have been looking at the park and cycle. We can't see that there is an economic justification for it. We're talking about 200 to 300 vehicles. The cost of providing is quite prohibitive compared to the number of vehicles. What we are suggesting, following the assembly, which is a very good suggestion, that we are looking at potential experimental sites. So we will look at sites elsewhere. We're not abandoning the idea, and we're actually starting to talk to a particular site owner further down Barton Road to look at potential there. So we are looking at alternative sites. But the recommendations, Chair, is that we carry on with a full outline business case for a new park and ride site to the west of Junction 11. Can I just clarify, people are asking why to that side of the M11. It's in the local transport plan, so that's why we're looking. We're not looking at the Trumpington side. The county did a lot of work on this within the local transport plan and identified that a site to the west of the M11 was a preferred site, and as Councillor Bates has said, there is a site there that we have got, the County Council has got an option on. So we're proposing that we continue with that development, following on from the LTP. We're asking you to agree not to proceed with park and cycle, but we are looking at the potential for other sites there that could be experimental sites. And we're also asking you to remove Junction 11. Junction 13 will stay with the current LLF that deals with the Camborne to Cambridge 428 scheme, but that we set up a specific consultation group that will include all the parish councils in the area and the local members. So it is site-specific. This is a very site-specific one rather than a linear corridor approach. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Phil, do you have any questions of clarification?
No.
What?
Just one, Chair. I'm just interested, obviously, on the west of the motorway in terms of that site and the fact that it is a county council site, and it was predetermined by the county council taking on Councillor Bates' interest. Is that piece of work available and been considered by GCP in terms of why the east side of the motorway has not been considered? Or is it just the fact that it is a county council site that we have an option on, and actually the county council have predetermined that should be the site?
No, the county council haven't predetermined it. It's in their local transport plan, which has been adopted by the mayor. And so the sites were looked at, and they specifically recommended on the west side of the M11 should be considered. It is a far better strategic fit. You're talking about taking inbound traffic to Cambridge. So the rationale is you wouldn't want that traffic crossing the traffic going out of Cambridge in the morning if it were on the other side of the A10. It is a far better strategic fit. However, we are having a consultation group, and we will be open to the debate and discussion. Questions have been asked about how they get off the motorway. We are already in discussions with the Highways England with a view to the potential, I can't say it is, but the potential of direct slip roads into the site. So we are looking at all those sort of options, but that will be something that we will consult with the consultation group, the first meeting of which we are looking to have just before Christmas.
Are we considering the east side of the motorway or not?
No. It's not in the local transport plan or the mayor's adopted plan.
Thank you.
I think before you set a lot of hairs on, you should explain what you mean by direct slip roads off the M11.
It could be a slip road that rather than cuts across the A10, goes under the A10. So those sort of things. What I'm saying is we're exploring all the options. Some of the points that have been...
slip roads south of...
Coming north.
If you're coming north,
Yes.
you'll come off south of the existing slip road.
Yes.
And then because that's all a bit elevated, it's a sort of
Yeah.
tunnel type concept coming in.
What I'm saying is we're looking at all the potential options. I'm not saying that there's any decision being made, any agreement being made, but there are potentials there that actually can get us over the conflict with the existing A10.
Thank you. That's useful clarification. So my clarification is really, what is, it's a process question, what is a full outline business case? What does it look like? It says on page 53 of the timetable that you will develop a series of distinct options, and I think you probably mean access and egress options more than anything else. I'm very interested in this agricultural bridge. I go over it every now and then. Is it strong enough? And all of that. Is it wide enough? I'm very interested in how cycles will get in and out, because they didn't go round the roundabout. I hear talk of is it burgers or hamburgers or something where the bus sort of goes dedicated through the middle of the roundabout. So I think my question is really what should we expect to see in March when it's coming back to us in March, and Rachel's kindly been at it before planned. What would the public, if we then go ahead, what would the public see in June, July? How comprehensive would it be for the public to fully get their heads around what it is that they're being consulted on? Or will it just say, well, we'll think about this in the future, we'll think about that in the future, and it'd be a bit unspecific? So, a long question, what is a full outline business case?
It's a laid out process that nationally we have. It's a treasury process that they have laid out. It's basically the first stage at which you get a scheme that gives you the detail, starts to give you the detail, like the access, like the environmental impacts and the mitigation that you could do. It doesn't give you the full detail, it doesn't work up the full environmental impact assessment. That's the next stage. But it gives you the option to say, this is the likely cost of this scheme, these are the likely environmental impacts, these are the likely mitigations that you could carry out. Is the scheme still feasible to go ahead? What is its cost-benefit analysis? And so is the scheme likely to be able to go to the next stage, which is full design? So it's before you get to the full design.
Public consultation.
The public consultation will have the detail that will show the potential alternative access arrangements. It will have the modelling there, the modelling that we've done on the alternative access arrangements. So it will have all of that. It will have the use of the agricultural bridge, we've already checked. It can take the weight with Highways England. It can take the weight. However, it is the county's park on the other side, so you would need to allow for access for pedestrians and cyclists and so on, so that might need extra work there. We would also have the price of putting a new bridge through the junction itself, so that the public would have a view about what the potential options are, what the likely costs are, and what the likely benefits are.
Okay. And in doing all of this, where I know you're going to create a site-specific consultation route.
Yes.
How do the parish councils, Hawkston or Harston or district councillors, do they become a member and send a representative to your site-specific consultation group, or are they separate and separately consulted? Because they will have views that they definitely want to feed in December and January, the timetable.
We will invite them all to a meeting, and it will be a series of meetings. So it won't be a matter necessarily of meeting with each council individually, parish council individually. It may well be that parish councils want to meet individually, and we have done that in the past, that's fine. We do it however best for them, but there will be meetings at which they will all be invited to, and they will nominate. So we are at the moment pulling that list together, and we will be contacting all the parish councils accordingly and asking them to send their representatives.
And I don't want to micromanage, but we've had a lot of these meetings where you split into little tables and people have subgroups. They've worked really well. Would you contemplate those?
Where we have the need for workshops, yes, that's the standard approach that we adopt, and we have facilitators that will facilitate. So, yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So that's the end of my... Oh, sorry, I do have one more question, which is, what does it mean to identify a pilot park and cycle scheme which has the potential to expand? Does that mean we're just going to ask one of the farmers? Is this just
No, we're going to...
take a corner of a field?
No. What we're going to do is we're going to look at where there might be already parking facilities that may not be used during the week, that could be utilised during the week, and talk to the particular owners there. So we will look at where we think there are sites and then go and approach people to see whether they would be interested in working with us on that. And as I say, we've already had one approach down the Barton Road. They've already contacted us to say they would be very interested. They have a parking area already. It is not utilised during the week. I can't say where because it will be there and there. We haven't spoken to them. The other option that they have...
So is this if we all agree recommendation 2, is this sort of down the Barton Road, or it doesn't?
It would come back to you.
Anywhere in the locality?
It could be anywhere in the locality, and before any decision would be taken, it would come back to the board.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of my question. Sorry.
I mean, just to clarify, that arose from the discussion at the Assembly, so we weren't recommending park and cycle because the numbers weren't looking like they were enough. The Assembly's view was that you create something and the cyclists will come, and therefore they were advocating that doing something on an experimental basis would prove that case or not, and it was on that basis that we slipped that in, so that we do need to now do more work to define what that looks like. But I think generally experimenting and piloting things is a direction of travel that we would recommend to the board.
If I talk at what was discussed, following on from Rachel, there was some disappointment that the Carpen cycle had dropped off the agenda, and therefore this is a mechanism for recognising the disappointment from the Assembly about trying to do something with some pilot on park and cycle. So there was quite a bit of disappointment on that. So it was trying to see a way forward to address what was the disappointment from the Assembly members.
It might not be just limited to the Barton range. You might go a little bit wider than that. Okay, thank you. Right. Are we ready to take a view on the recommendations? So we'll take them in order. Number 1, I won't read it out, but it starts with the words agree to proceed with full outline business case. Are we happy with that? Yeah. Number 2, not to proceed with park and cycle to identify a pilot. And 3, remove the remit for junction and Campbell's Cambridge on the left and set up a specific consultation group. We've heard details of that. Yeah. Great.